Okay, good afternoon. I seem to have some kind of like delay. It's like sort of moving, stuttering like. Are you all okay?
You sound fine to me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so welcome to the May meeting of the City Council Chairs Committee. And we'll start with finance.
Yes. First thing I'll start off is you all should have gotten a memo from Council President about priorities around budget. So if you can just get that back to the Chief of Staff, and kind of maybe we can send out another reminder for folks just so they can remember about that. You should have that. The legislation, nothing major. The one thing I would point out in legislation is, because I know we like to keep the 2034 plan top of mind, the one piece of legislation from finance, there is the Food Policy Council, which is in there, which is from the 2034 plan. So I think that's just something to point out as a highlight. And then the rest of our stuff is pretty standard operating procedure items that are coming through finance for this month. Because I have to hop off, I'll just add a couple of things about the convention center and then be quiet. Obviously it's still tough at the convention center. Not much is happening. Thank God for the vaccine county vaccination program. That's still happening. They're still doing as many as 2,000 a day and as little as 300 a day. It all depends on the supply chain of what's happening over there. And there's no definitive end date in terms of when they're going to end the program. And the center is still getting a little bit, is getting compensated from the county for that. So thank God that's happening, because that's keeping at least some type of activity going on, being that we still have not had, large scale events yet. And FoodLink is still over there. So they have like 27,000 packages of box food that's over there. So thank God that FoodLink is also using that location. So with that said,
Councilmember Evans, we also
Yep.
will have the legal counsel item in there. It'll be the charter change for that. It'll be in the June council meeting, and that'll
Okay.
be going out of finance.
Okay. Great. And the other thing is, just the budget. There's a significant shortfall at the convention center, obviously, because of the obviously what's happening with large scale events across the country. So that hasn't changed since the last time I told you. Revenue on the worst case scenario is we're looking at maybe 2.5 million versus 8 million, which is what they usually would get in a good year. So we're looking at a significant shortfall. So obviously those are internal conversations that we'll have at the city in terms of how we address that. So that's kind of what's going on with the convention center and finance, Madam President.
We're required to support the convention center much as we were before this new agreement, much as we were for the War Memorial. So given that we would have to, on some level, provide deficit funding for the convention center, does that then queue it up to receive money that we would be able to provide some portion of the America Rescue Plan to the convention center?
Well, that's the conversation I know that Chris is having with them over there. I hope so, but I know that they are having those conversations, and I know I'll also bring that up with Chris, so he knows. So hopefully we'll see if the American Rescue Plan funding will be able to be covered for that. Because in my opinion, I think a lot of the stuff that's happened has happened as a result of the pandemic, and that's what the American Rescue Plan is for. But I know Chris is going to look to see if that. I know the convention center is talking with Chris to see if some of that could apply to the convention center and maybe any of the other entities that we provide subsidy to. Because I'm sure it's just not going to be the convention center, it could be the Blue Cross as well.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be kind of like a back door in, because we would be able to replace money lost as a result of the pandemic.
Right.
That would be because we've got to give money to those that I just mentioned. So
right.
It may not be able to be direct but sort of a backdoor. But
Right.
it's a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so that's kind of my report. And look, it wasn't as sad as some of the ones like, 6 months ago, because the feds came through, and so did the state a little bit. So it's happy news.
Oh, and the school district, we'll be meeting with them
Yes.
next
Oh, yes,
week or
that's right.
so.
That's right. So the president and I will be meeting with the school district, as you know. In addition to the 3-on-3, we also said that we wanted to stay in close contact with the school district so we could understand their budget. So the president and I will be meeting with them to get a feel for what their budget will look like and start to anticipate some of the questions that we may have. As you know, they also got a pretty big, they get more money than we did. They got a pretty big nut from the feds in terms of funds that they have coming in. And they also did extremely, extremely well from the state this time around. So looking forward to seeing what they are going to be laying out. And obviously we'll keep council informed on what we get back from them. And last time we shared notes with folks, and we'll do that same thing again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Council Member Patterson, MBD.
Thank you, Madam President. So going along those same lines with Rescue Act dollars, we're probably all waiting to hear exactly what those dollars can be used for. We got an email this morning about the senior feeding program that's wildly popular but has come to an end. And so, at some point in time, I know the administration is waiting to hear from the federal government on exactly what those dollars can be used for. But it'd be nice if we got that that information from the federal government sooner rather than later. So that's preamble. Nothing new in MBD. I mean, it's our standard routine. We sell real estate. We're buying some real estate. And we've got some more COVID dollars, which is very cool, to help with a housing relief fund. And those dollars are specifically for whatever doesn't fit into whatever else we have. So not a whole lot going on in MBD. From looking at the agenda, the ATV legislation was paid. Looks like it was placed in MBD, but I don't really know if it goes there. But I read it and I like it, and that's about it. That's it for MBD. Nothing else going on, really.
Mike, I was thinking it would go there just because what it is an ordinance change. It changes a part of one of the codes that's under MBD. And the only thing, it changes the fine and fee structure.
Okay, because I mean, everything I read was the police chief. But okay, I mean, it's fine. Wherever it is where it is.
Well, that was my initial reaction was it's not in the committee yet because we were sort of out of cycle. But as I thought about it, said all the other code changes will come out of MBD. So we can. Well,
it's I mean, it's not like I'm overly burdened or anything this month. So please feel free to leave it where it is. It's not a problem.
Okay.
But that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a quiet month.
Can we talk about that legislation now, President?
Yes.
Or do you want to talk about it after?
No, we can talk about it.
So what I read it was in the attachment, and I see that we're changing the proposals to change the code to redefine these things, which is similar to what we did even last year with scooters and e-bikes, which, by the way, is a whole nother part of this. I mean, we should be seeing the scooters and e-bikes on our streets via Hopper, the new system that we're working with, sometime this summer. And I think that's part of the whole communication about this. Is meanwhile, we're going to be legalizing some e-bikes, and now we're also talking about issues with other things that people may just call e-bikes. So I think the definitions are very helpful, but I didn't see anything related to what the actual enforcement or fines or anything, fee structures, things like that are going to be. Is that not stuff for us to actually vote on? We're just voting on changing the language.
I thought I saw it. It was in there. Yeah, it's in there.
Okay, let me go back and look.
So one question I have about the fees is that it says not to exceed $1,000, but that doesn't define what it actually will be set at. Do we know what that is?
No, and what we also don't have yet is the whole like appeal. There's going to be an appeal process. So it's still a work in progress.
Well, if
Yeah,
it's
I
a work
think-
in progress, are we looking to move the item as submitted this month, or are we looking to hold the item and continue to work on?
Well, I suspect it'll sit in committee for a minute, just as
Okay.
we
Yeah.
keep going there. Because I wanted to
And-
get it out soon enough that we could have those kinds of conversations.
Yeah, and Madam President, can I just say, I think another thing too that could be helpful with this is, because none of us are looking to penalize people. That even when we pass this, maybe there's like an education plan or a public awareness education plan that will be rolled at the same time, so people know, that there's education that goes along with it too. So maybe that's
What?
something that we can discuss too, as part of the overall package of this code change.
It appears that there's some work being done on that. I think there's actually a video. I think I recall seeing a video where there was an officer giving out a pamphlet and doing something really nice, friendly kind of thing. Am I misremembering that? Just
Good
within the
question.
last week or so.
I have a question about that then. I don't quite understand the educational part because, I mean, my son is 13 years old. He knows not to take his bike out on the road. I mean, I feel as though these kids are old enough to know not to get on an illegal dirt bike and ATV and go cruising down the street with 50 other people. Like, this is pretty common knowledge, right?
Yeah, I think you're right, council member, but I think you're right, but I think that you have to make sure that folks can't say we didn't know that this was coming, we didn't know that we were going to be fined for it. So yeah, that's my only point as it relates to the education piece, and we usually try to do that with any ordinance change. So I just think that could nothing elaborate, but just some basic ABCs of, hey, this is what this means to you
Well,
if you're writing one of these things.
I do think I saw something like I was saying earlier, but it's even beyond letting people know about it. I think the intent is to not have another police thing slamming folks. I think I need to look at that again, but it was a really sort of warm, friendly, unusual thing that was put out. Councilmember Lupien?
Yeah, I'm very, I've raised these concerns before, concerned about the legislation for a couple reasons. One, these are predominantly Black and brown young men that are riding them. It's putting a fine that could be up to $1,000 that could, lead to all kinds of things happening later down the line, like eviction, losing, not being able to pay a car payment, whatever it could be, but it could escalate things in their life. $1,000 to people in a certain economic status is a lot of money. And two, it's increasing their contact with the police. I've heard reports that they're already being chased, which they're not supposed to be chased. And it's increasing the contact of young Black and brown men with the police. And I agree that that we have to do something, and that riding them irresponsibly is not okay. But I really strongly believe that without pairing this legislation with some legal way for them to ride, some sanctioned space, and I understand there's some things to work out, but that we're going to see a lot of negative consequences in people's lives and not necessarily solve the problem, because it's bigger than just people riding bikes. Like they're not doing it to piss us off, right? They're doing it for some reason. And, from talking with them, it's building community. It's getting kids off the corner to do something positive. Maybe we wouldn't think it's positive, but they do. They're getting excited about fixing bikes and becoming mechanics in the future. Some of the packs are mixing Black riders and Hispanic riders, and they're finding commonality with someone who's not, they feel is not like them. So there's a lot more to this, on top of the fact that it's a movement, not just in Rochester, but throughout the country. And I found this hard to believe myself, but people are actually coming to Rochester from other cities and states to ride here. And so it's also tourism. So I really would hope that as part of this legislation that we can amend it to create a sanctioned space. And there are spaces, particularly two that I can think of at Lexington and Mount Read. There's a very large area that's probably a brownfield. And
Whoa, Mary, hold on.
can I finish what I'm saying, Councilman Pio?
Yeah, Councilmember.
As well as down underneath the in that area where RG&E and Bausch and Lomb owned by the Ponta Run Bridge. So not saying that those spaces might be where we do it, but just, expanding our idea of what could be. And then pair that with an education campaign to, teach safe riding, provide helmets. I'm sure there's, maybe funds from the police department that we could use to buy helmets. I just think that there's more that we could do.
Thank you, Councilmember Lupien. Councilmember Pio.
Yes. Okay, so we just brought up illegal tourism, right? We just gave them okay to come here and perform illegal acts in our city. We can sit here and say that we can provide this dirt track, right? Or this area where they'll all just flock to and they'll only ride in that area. Anyone with common sense knows that is not what a lot of them want. They go down the street in flocks of 50 down Lake Avenue, down to the beach, and they create havoc. They're not there saying, oh, we're just here to have fun. We just need to express ourselves. That's not what they're doing. They're creating havoc. They're running through red lights. They're doing UEs and freaking donuts at the cross sections. They're doing illegal activities on illegal vehicles. All right. If they want to do that, they can do it under dirt pack. There's nothing stopping anyone from buying up some land and creating that. Or Mary, you can do that in the Southeast. You can do that. Don't put it in my area. But if we're going to do this, we got to do it right. If we're going to give them information, we're going to say, this is illegal. You cannot do this. You can place your vehicles here, but you can't ride them on the road. You can't. It's illegal. There's no other way around this. I don't understand how we're even discussing legalizing this.
I would like to first, are you saying I don't have common sense? Because that's what I heard. Two,
Yeah, I mean,
what's stopping people from buying land? There's many things stopping people from buying land.
Such as?
Not going to go there.
Money, they can buy ATVs and dirt bikes.
Anyway.
They can fix their ATVs and dirt bikes. They have money.
Anyway, I'm not saying to legalize them on the streets. I'm saying give them a place to take them, to ride them recreationally. Right now, there is nowhere they can do that. They're not riding them to create havoc and piss you off. And from the people that I've talked to, they would be very grateful for a legal place to ride them. And we're brainstorming all kinds of ideas of how to rent a U-Haul and get the bikes there and go and pick up their people. They share bikes. They're buying gas for each other. It's actually very community oriented. And I'm trying to set up a meeting with some folks from the community for you to hear from them themselves, because they have not been engaged on this issue. And I don't agree that just because they're doing something that is currently illegal and right, dangerous, I get all that, but that they shouldn't have a seat at the table.
Let's just have a little ground rule clarification. I like this sort of energetic conversation, but it has to be done respectfully. And, we don't cast aspersions at anybody. I might disagree, but I won't do it in such a way as to challenge your intelligence or anything along those lines. So let's keep it within the bounds of professionalism. Councilmember Patterson. Well, before I do that, I have to say, Councilmember Lupien, I hear you. I don't agree with you, just in terms of the impact on the Black and Brown community. I know about the disproportionate impact, but at what level do we say people have to take responsibility for their own actions? They don't have to buy and own ATV. It's not like it's an issue where we're saying they need this to get to work. And if they can't get to work, they can't support their families, and it puts them on the wrong track. This is purely recreational, and there are other options. So I would just put my disagreement in that it just it's almost a little offensive to when we start cordoning off people of color and saying we're going to be disproportionately just because we're Black or brown and we're more likely to have this or that happen to us. This one, I don't think fits in that category, but that again is my opinion. I know
And
that Member Patterson and Council Member Gruber.
I just
had
want to
comments.
just finish that last piece is that, you know, it's not from my mouth, it's from their mouth. And I'm really excited for you all to hear from them directly. And I'll just leave it at that.
Assembly Member Meeks is having a listening session about this, I think on Tuesday. So we might want to, and it's from the biking community, as I understand it. That's where I read it, that he wants to hear.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, okay. Gruber, Patterson.
Oh, no, I don't have anything to say. I'm good. Y'all go ahead.
Okay. Council Member Gruber.
Yeah, so first of all, I will say that I do ultimately agree that I think that that sanctioning and permitting an opportunity for recreational use makes a lot of sense. I don't necessarily agree that it needs to be in the city. I think, as a matter of fact, if we look at Monroe County, there's a lot more opportunities for big, expansive land that is not near residential and things of that nature. But I think it's certainly something that's worth exploring and talking to alongside the county. But I want to go back to the actual legislation that we're being asked to vote on. So the reason why I had said before that I didn't see anything about the fines is because I went and looked in the document that was sent to us. And as usual, it's the underlying pieces that are new changes to the code. And the stuff about the fines and the fees were not underlined. The only parts that were underlined was about the changing of the adding of definitions to things like ATV and go-karts, things of that nature. So I just want to understand what we're specifically being asked to vote on right now. It seems to me that we're being asked to take our existing municipal code, chapter 111, where it talks about what is and is not allowed on the road. And we're just adding definitions to that and saying that these are things that are not currently allowed on the road, which would be in line with what the DMV states as well. And if that's the case, then it's hard to imagine there being a problem with that. If this is our attempt at doing something that is tailored specifically to these vehicles, then I think it makes sense to do something a little bit more robust. So I don't know if that's a question that any of us can answer here, if that's something we need to ask the law department or Kelly Maturko from policy. But President Scott, are you aware of what we're actually voting on? Just adding those definitions or changing the fee structure too?
I thought we were doing both. The fee structure question was out there too, because we're also trying to work in tandem with the county, as they had legislation that was going to be considered in that same realm. So we didn't want to create a situation where it almost encouraged people to go to one jurisdiction or another, because if they got caught, the fees were less. So we'll have certainly a lot more conversation about what it is we're attempting to do with this piece of legislation.
Yeah, because right now the legislation, the document that was sent to us, there's a lot in it's section 1 of chapter 111 of the municipal code. It adds lots of definitions, but then it doesn't seem to me that we're adding much of anything else to the code other than those definitions. So if we're changing fee structure, I'd like to understand, and usually that's what the underlining is for, what we're changing it from and to,
Right.
And that's just not clear at this point.
All right, we'll clarify that.
Thanks.
Okay. What is our next? Oh, PPW.
Yeah, there's a lot in the packet this month, as usual in construction season with PPW, but a lot of really good things. It is also a lot of stuff related to our water systems. I believe it always happens this time of year where we're funding the subcontracting of some major tests to be sure of our water quality level. And so that's I think in some ways the lion's share of what we're voting on. One thing I did want to talk about that is definitely has been high of mind for me, and we did get a couple emails about it, is related to the skate park and the fence that's up there now. So we are being asked to bond for some dollars to put up to take down the temporary fence that's at the skate park right now, which is not only is it really aesthetically, it's just very unpleasant. It's a chain link fence that just kind of went up haphazardly, but it also obstructs and blocks the trails there. It's incredibly counterintuitive for what we're trying to do with Rock the River Way. So we're replacing that. We're being asked to replace that and put up a new design that is much more low. It's much lower in terms of visibility. It doesn't make people feel like they're trapped in or caged into the skate park, and it keeps all the trails open. And I think that's a great idea. I went down to the skate park with our engineer and with the president and members of the board of the Friends of the Skate Park, and also with people who are working on Rock the Riverway. And everyone's really supportive of this, and I'm sure we're going to get some letters of support about it as well. So I know it's not cheap, but one of the reasons, by the way, to go back to the conversation before, that we need a fence there at all is because a lot of motorcycles have been coming in to the skate park. And the issue there, aside from noise, the issue there is that we just put in a lot of very expensive infrastructure in that skate park, and a lot of motorcycles on it will very much limit the life. So yeah, that I know that people have questions about that. I hope that answers it. And if there's any other questions on PPW, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, if there are none, then we, and since the Vice President's not here to go over public safety and recreation and human services, we can go to the reports from boards and commissions. And we did, Councilman Evans, I think, is off the call, and we did go over the convention center. Councilmember Gruber, ABC?
Yeah, I mean, President Scott, I would defer to you on how much you want to talk about some of the contractual issues that are going on right now with ABC that are outside of our jurisdiction as the city. Is that something you want to talk about?
The level of information I have on it is limited, only that the state has decided to pull the contract for, is it soy? It's not Save Our Youth.
It is. It's Save Our Youth.
The contract for Save Our Youth from ABC, and they gave like a 30-day notice. And you talk about counterintuitive to pull funding for a program that's got people on the streets dealing with issues related to violence at a time when we're at some peak levels with gun violence on the street. So we are going to be meeting with some representatives from the state at some point soon, because this is serious. You know, we need every dime we can get out there, and to have that, I think it's $500,000 contract.
I believe
to
that's
have
right.
that just snatched and given to Strong at that just can't be allowed to stand as it is.
Especially, the only point I would make to that is especially because the overhead administrative costs at a place like Strong are just significantly higher than they are at a place like ABC. So for every dollar spent on staff, you get more people doing the work when you're talking about a contract for ABC than when you're talking about a contract for folks at Strong. And I think we really need to assess that. So that's obviously been big. Other than that, there's not much to report from ABC, except that, you know, we're hoping to have a more normal Head Start year coming up in the upcoming school year, which I think would be huge for this community. And I think we all really need to push and make sure that we are getting the message out to our constituents that early childhood opportunities are going to be back in a variety of ways this upcoming school year, because enrollment was obviously down significantly in the last year, and we gotta all work together to build that back up. And while I'm on the mic, I would just add my two other committees, which is the libraries, which again I think are doing a phenomenal job of stepping up when needed, trying to expand new hours and open up new hours every chance that they can. And I think they've been doing an excellent job of filling in gaps in communities when they can. And finally, when it comes to Peace Village, you know, there's opportunities there for us to start to put in some shelters that have actually been approved by the fire marshal, which we're hopefully going to get in there soon. But one problem that continues to happen there is fires, and we really need to think through ways that we can work with the fire department. So I'm going to be actually bringing the fire department to the next meeting to think through how we can just make sure that people are safe there, because there have been a couple of fires in the last several months.
And the shelters where they're living, or
Yeah.
how do you mean?
Yeah. So
Well, since none of that stuff is like, I don't know, fire rated, it seems like we're working at cross purposes.
yeah, exactly. So we're trying, one of the goals that the board has expressed about Peace Village in the long term that I really agree with fundamentally is trying to think of it more as a campground than anything else, and trying to figure out how it can, because ultimately we want people to know that's one of many options. And at a campground, there's going to be fires, but the question is, how do you create the infrastructure to allow for those fires to be safe, for people to know what is or is not allowable? And so I think that there's a lot of conversation before we approve of anything. But the fire marshal has just been incredibly generous with her time in working through some of these things, and she's going to come to the next board meeting and have a conversation with us as a whole board.
Thank you. Okay, and Councilmember Harris is not. Yes, Councilmember Gruber, you're everywhere. So you're with Raise?
Oh yeah, I don't have much of an update. I have not heard. I know the city put out a press release about the implementation plan the other day, but I actually have not been clued into what the implementation process is besides what I saw in the press release. But I'm really looking forward to hearing about it. I don't know if VP Lightfoot was on the phone. I'm sure he'd have more details, but I don't at this moment.
Okay. Councilmember Patterson, can you bring us up to speed with RECO?
Meetings right now. We had a governance meeting last week, so we've got a manual we pulled together for new board members. Yeah, I covered everything that our last meeting. I think I covered everything we had done to date. So I don't think I have anything new to report right now for REDCO.
Mike, can I ask
just kind of circling back around? Sure.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just have one quick question about REDCO. I'm having a lot of people reach out to me recently about potential new startup businesses. I think there's a lot of ingenuity right now and innovation, and I think people are looking for access to capital. Is it wise to just send people to REDCO's website to start?
Yes. Just send them right to the website. That's the best way to do. And I would also encourage you to send them to the Office of Community Wealth Building. That's where I send everybody to both places at the same time. So there's a technical support that you get out of our Office of Community Wealth Building for the city of Rochester. And then there's the opportunity for funding that you get working with REDCO, and also some technical assistance there. So I send everybody to those two locations first. The underwriters over there are really solid. They're community oriented. They're actually out in the neighborhood, knocking on doors and talking to existing businesses. They're also, and REDCO also works closely with NBD and our folks over there. Dana Miller is the chair of the board for REDCO. So there are a lot of times where we cross-pollinate and we work collaboratively together. So absolutely, don't even just send them to the website, and don't have no hesitation in doing that. But
Okay.
One of the things that I wanted to just kind of step back to for a real quick second is we've got GIVE funding coming back up, authorization this month. And I stand at folks only about various
You're
things.
breaking up. You're
And
breaking up.
I attended. Well, maybe can you hear me now? Am I just not talking loud enough? Can you hear me
No,
now?
it's sort of. It's a little better, but it's a little that robot
Okay.
voice.
Okay, I haven't moved. I'm sitting still. But anyway, so look, the reason why we know about what's going on with ABC is because I was attending one of the monthly give meetings for the Northeast, and they mentioned it casually in passing. Oh yeah, Snug Soy is going away. It's going over here. But what I'm really bringing you guys to is that Give is a tremendous program dealing with gun violence across this city. I understand some of y'all have some concerns and issues with the police and all that nice fun stuff, and we want to do things differently, and I'm not opposed to that at all. But when we are talking about the guys with guns who shoot people, these are the extra dollars that go to find the guys with guns who shoot people and take them off the street. This is a vitally important program. I understand folks have their own feelings about every other thing, but let me just speak up for the Give program. They know what they're doing. They are spending the money on overtime patrols. Those overtime patrols go specifically at reducing violence in our city. So I just want to take this minute and advocate for the Give program. And if you can find a way to vote for it, regardless of what your personal feelings are about the police, in the interest of public safety and saving a life, I urge you to vote for it. And that's just it. That's my little bit on that.
I have a question about that.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you have information on how exactly they go about that?
Yes, I do.
Is it, so the question is,
No,
are they
it's not
targeting?
No, it's not freely available. And do they target, put it like this, they target the guys who have guns, who have histories of having guns, and who have histories of engaging in violence in the community. That's
So
what
they're not engaging in pretextual stops.
No, Mary, that's not what they're
doing. They're probably, it wouldn't be pretextual if it looked at a certain way. But if you get back to the statement that they go after people who have guns that shoot people, and that the person is in a particular location and likely to be armed at that moment, you find a reason to stop. That would qualify as pretextual, right?
Look, no, I'm not even going to get into that. Here's what I'm going to say to you. This is what I have observed, and this is what I saw from the meeting, and it goes along with what I see in the community. Look, man, there are people who carry guns. That's what they do. Okay? And they aren't exactly as quiet about it as you would think. But you need a reason to make an arrest. And they take the time to do the work to get the evidence to make the arrest. That's what they do. And that's what those Give dollars go for. So, it's real easy to be down on the police right now. I get that, I understand that. But at the same time, we got people out here shooting people, ladies and gentlemen. And that's happening almost every day.
Yeah.
And we need, so now look, and we need multiple ways to get at this. But one of the ways we definitely need to get at this is we need the guys with the handcuffs to go handcuff the guys with the guns who shoot people. That's something that we need to be in favor of. Now, your bag is your bag, your hang up is your hang up. But I'm here to tell you, they're doing real work. They're doing police work. They're not just randomly just grabbing, oh yeah, he's black and he looks like he might have a gun. Let's grab. No, that's not what.
Yeah, that's the definition of a pretextual stop.
Yeah, well, Mary, that's not what they're doing, and that's why I'm going through what I'm going through. Okay, they're doing police work, Mary. There are people. I'm gonna shut up. They're doing police work, Mary, and they are going after the people who have the guns who shoot people. That's what they're doing.
Well, I would need a lot more information because
Mary,
I understand that.
But Mary, wait a minute.
I'm still speaking. I'm still speaking.
No, wait a minute, Mary. I can't.
No, I'm going to finish my sentence, Mr.
Mary, I can't give you a whole
well,
lot
we
more
can have
information.
one at a time. So, Councilmember Patterson,
if you want to finish your remarks. But if you want to talk, but what I would encourage you to do, if you want more information, why don't you have a conversation with the police and they can explain it to you?
Okay, so now Councilmember Lupien, you have remarks you wanted to make?
I'm all set.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Councilmember Lupien, you want to talk about the Crisis Intervention Services Unit? Councilmember Lupian?
I don't think that I have much of an update. You know, they're continuing to staff up and to meet the demand. You know, I believe they're going on about 100 calls a week. And many of those calls are co-responding with the police, but they are still, there's still their initial 3 call types going to alone. And yep, that's all I got.
Do you know if that unit is at its full staffing component?
I don't
Or-
believe it is.
And if that's likely to happen? No, I'm looking at this whole thing about the availability to find people and wondering how we're gonna all make out as we go forward with the lack of adequate or interested applicants for some of these jobs.
Well, I will find that out and send it out to everybody.
Thank you. Councilmember Melendez?
Yes, Madam President. For the Board of Health, it was a light month. There wasn't too much going on. We did have a few stores that are in the city of Rochester that received some violations for selling cigarettes to minors or not IDing, a combination of both. And so those stores were assessed some points, and the unique circumstances there is if you get a certain amount of points in a year, not only do you lose your tobacco license, you also lose your ability to sell lotto. So it's a big ding for some businesses. So we only had one that I think reached the point threshold at this point, and they'll be losing that ability. Outside of that, we did talk a little bit about mental health and some of the updates around what's going on at the county. They are, as you just mentioned, for crisis intervention, they are trying to beef up their FIT team as well. And we expect that in the next couple of months, they'll be fully staffed at 28 members of their team. That's the update.
All right. Thank you for that. Are we still on the daily COVID calls, or? is
Yeah,
it
just on
2 o'clock?
Tuesdays.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you. The Board of Ethics has not met, did not have items. So I think that's it. That covers everything. Did I miss anything? Are there any items that we still need to talk about? If not, I believe we're finished, and I thank you all. We have a couple of items we need to follow up with. Thank you for your